again. I mean, good morning.
Ladies and gentlemen, sit back and enjoy
Mega Meeple.
Greetings and welcome to the Mega Meeple. This is episode 13 of season 4. How the hell are ya? Wow. So, this episode I'm gonna do something a little bit different. I'm gonna go back to what we used to do before episode 4, season 4, before all this COVID shit hit the fan. Cause as you all know, if you listen to the podcast long enough, I'm high risk for COVID, so I've been in isolation quarantine for the past year now. Jesus. So yeah. So we got that going on, but so recently, season 4 has just been, having people on and just, shooting the shit, talking, blah, anything. It's not necessarily have to do with the games or anything. Well, this episode, we still have a guest. Yes, we still have a guest, but it is. It's a creator of a game that I think at this point, this season of my life has really helped to spark, give me a little spark of hope in the board game community and the hobby. Because let's face it, there's been shit going on social media for a while, and it seems like every month something new comes up. And then just for people like me that's under quarantine, I haven't done any gaming hardly at all, other than maybe like a bi-weekly FaceTime with BattleTech. And even though, that's fun and all, but it's a lot different than just being in the same room with your players. You gotta be, I really miss the time of just being in the same room, being around the gaming table, and just having fun. And you could do a Tabletopia or Roll20 or what have you, and maybe like my battle group does. We do it with FaceTime, but that's just not the same. It's fun, but I still feel separated and from the group. But this game that I'm going to be talking about today helped rekindle my hope for the hobby, because there was for the past few months I was getting ready to just sell all my stuff. Get rid of the game table, sell all the games and just keep the ones that I could play solo, and just say, fuck it, I'm done with this. I'm never gonna be able to get these games to the table again. We're not gonna have people around there, coming over anymore. This hobby is dead to me. I'm not having fun anymore. And I was really ready to do that. But the creator of this game that I'm going to talk about, that's my guest in this episode. It's odd because when this game was on the Kickstarter, it was before COVID. It was pre-COVID. There was no quarantine. There wasn't no shutdowns. There were no social distancing. There was no hundreds of thousands of deaths because of this stuff. Since it was released, and they ported it very well with Discord and Roll20, this game has really enabled people who are quarantined and stuck at home to be able to still actively play games with their friends and still not feel separated or isolated away from the group. So if you follow me on Twitter, you pretty much know what I'm talking about here. If you're not following me on Twitter, well, tough shit, you missed out. But I'll let you in on the secret here. This game is called Alice is Missing, and it was created and designed by Spenser Starke, who is going to be my guest later on in this episode. But basically, this is a silent role-playing game. Now, the first 45 minutes or hour is strictly just character building, world building, stuff like that, and just basically going through creating your character that you will be embodying during the actual game. And then when you actually play the game proper, there's a video on YouTube. It's a animated 90-minute timer. So everybody, when you do it on online, you just have everybody open up that particular YouTube video and count down and start it at the same time, so everybody's in sync. But when you're having people around the table playing this, you just have it on a phone or iPad or something, or a computer, and when you're ready to start, you hit play, and the timer starts at 90 minutes and counts down. And from that point on, everybody has to shut the fuck up. No talking. In fact, it's one of these things that if you have a big house or something like that, each player could go to a separate room. They just have to know there are certain parts that, and they'll be cued and guided on it, where they have to go to the game table and do something like pick a card or draw a card or shuffle something or something like that. But they'll be cued on when they have to do that. But other than that, they could go. You could have somebody go off and take a shit in the bathroom, and basically you're playing the game on your phone, and you're doing nothing but texting one another. That's all you're doing. You're playing 5 people who are friends or were once friends, and they all knew this teenage girl named Alice. And Alice has gone missing. She's been missing for like 3 days. And even before you get to that point, you go through, first of all, you pick your character. There's 5 characters. One character is typically the facilitator, and they're the one that kind of, in a sense, is almost like a GM, but not. He's an active player. He or she is an active player as well. But you have you pick your character cards, and each character has a secret that they have to not reveal to anybody. But during the course of the 90-minute game, you have to kind of improv and work your secret into a conversation or narrative with either one other person, one other player in a private message, or if not that, to the entire group, or kind of work that in. Then you have these drive cards, and the drive cards all have motives on it. And it basically, the motive is, it gives you sort of like a launching out point. If you're doing if this was a play or a movie, it's like the actor would be, "What's my motivation?" And then it gives you the motivate. Like at one point, one of the cards can be ask questions, lots of them, collect the details, push for answers, and find the truth. Alice is counting on you. You fear another motive could be you fear the worst for Alice. Jump to conclusions, make conspiracy theories, and blame yourself for her disappearance. And you take that's just like a launching point to what motivates your character. And then also on the drive cards, there are 2 relationships, and you have to assign each relationship to 2 other players. And it could be, for example, I know you don't care about Alice as much as I do. Or Alice has forgiven you for something, but I haven't. And you assign those things to other players, and that, along with your motive, it really help drive the narrative and how you interact with the different characters. And then you have locations and suspects. Now, basically, people choose. Each player chooses a location and a suspect that they feel has some kind of connection to Alice and her disappearance. They're kind of suspicious about that particular location or suspect. And then they have the clue cards. Now, the clue cards are the main mechanic that drives the game forward. You have, let's see, you got a 10-minute card, you got a 20-minute card, 30, 35, 40-minute card, 45-minute, 50-minute, 60-minute, 70-minute, 80-minute, and you have one 90-minute card that goes to the facilitator. He's the one, he or she picks the one at the 90-minute. So when you start the 90-minute timer for the game, you're basically, whoever's playing the Charlie Barnes character, which is the facilitator, they take the 90-minute card, and it prompts you to do something. Like the 90-minute card prompts Charlie to send out the first text after the first song on the timer. And that's another cool thing is the timer has its own soundtrack. This game has its own score, and it has music on it, and the music is very thematic. It's almost timed to the action in the game, even though the game is primarily improv through texts and text messaging. When these certain clue cards come out at certain time stamps, shit hit the fan, and when it does, you could the music and the soundtrack kind of swells up and gets louder or gets faster or something like that. So it's the music just adds more immersion and emotional impact to the game. Like I said, this is very much like a movie. You're creating your own movie, or people who do LARPing. This is the same type of things that LARPs do. And then after the 90-minute is done, you'll on the soundtrack you'll hear like a bell dinging like 4 or 5 times. That means time is up. All the players can type out and put out one last in-character text, and then that's it. And then it goes into what was prepared before the game, and that is before the game starts, each player records a voice message of basically the voice message of the last phone call that they made to Alice before they knew and discovered that she was missing. and they all record that prior to starting the game. And if you haven't played the game before, I found a lot of people. It's like, why are we doing this? I don't understand why we're recording this 60-second voicemail to Alice. But after the 90-minute game, when you go through all that stress and stuff as far as trying to find Alice, the voicemails that you play at the end of the game just hits you even harder emotionally. There have been I forget how many times I played this game, but every single frickin' time I played it, the characters who people have never played it before, we're all just kind of cutting around and stuff, joking and blah blah blah, and this is we're really looking forward to this, and then we play the game, and after the 90 minutes, we come back on a voice chat, and it's like dead silence, and everybody is just freaking speechless. And a lot of the comments would be, wow, that was intense. I've had a few players, because right now we're playing over Discord and Roll20, but just we don't have on video. We're just doing like voice chat, and quite a few people would be like, "Yeah, I'm glad that we didn't have video on this game, because I didn't want to have anybody see me cry at the end, because you're not promised a happy ending." And this is one of these games. This is one of the few games that I have played that really makes you feel something. It just emotionally grabs you by the heart and makes you feel things. Makes you feel sadness, grief, disappointment. It makes you feel excitement, anger, just all those really, happy la la foo foo feelings, But geez, I mean, if you play any like Cthulhu game, I mean, Christ, what Cthulhu game ends on a happy note? But this game really, really makes you feel things, and I've never really encountered a game like that. I mean, I've had role playing games come close, but as far as board games, I think that there's only the only board game that really came close to make me feel something is This War of Mine. That came pretty close, but it didn't go as far as Alice is Missing. And you would think, well, why the hell would anybody want to play a game like that? The beautiful thing about this game is even before you start character building and world building and start to play the 90-minute game, you go through, basically you establish borders. And the borders they have is lined and veiled. And, the different topics like violence, gore and violence, sexual non-consent, that type of thing. You could either any topic that you want to stay away from, or just kind of avoid, or just tiptoe around. They have these. You establish your borders before you even begin to play, and veiled topics are things that you could mention during the course of the narrative, but you don't get into it in any great detail. And then lined topics are things that you just stay away from, period. I tell my players, think of it as like a line in the sand. Okay, the line is drawn, do not step over this line. So we avoid those topics altogether. For example, when I play the game, one of the topics that I'd line is death or harm to any animals, which is really weird because I love horror movies. So I could watch a movie of a slasher flick, and these people are getting, hacked to death and chopped up and killed and stuff like that, and I'm loving it. But they do any harm to a puppy or a cat? Oh, fuck no. Yeah, I don't play that. No, I can't do that. No. And then if anything, because there may be some topics that people may not think about when you're doing a character creation, and in that case, they have the X card. So you're in the 90-minute game. You're texting away. You're not allowed to talk. You could talk out of character to people, but anything that you say or text out of character, you just put it in parentheses. But if something like a topic comes up that, oh shit, I didn't think of that when we were doing our boundaries of veils and lines, and I'm kind of sensitive to that. That hits a raw nerve with me. You could do an X card, which is basically, if you're playing the game around the table, there's an actual X card, and you could, slap that down on the table or have that down on the table and, tap on it. In your text, in parentheses, you just put an X, or in parentheses X, and then the content, and then and that's basically what you want removed from the game. Okay, so for example, if I'm playing a game and somebody mentions something about comas or being some kind of medical or cancer or something like that, that's a raw nerve for me. So I would then put out in the chat, in the text messaging, inside parentheses, I would put the letter X, and then mention of cancer or coma. And at that point, really, it's no explanation is needed, no debate, no going back and forth. It was like, well, why do you want to X that out? No, if something is lined or X'd, that topic is removed from the game or avoided at all cost. You never have to explain why you lined that topic or put an X on it if it comes up. And then after the game, you either find Alice or you don't. If you find Alice, she may be alive, she might be dead. One of the characters in their pursuit and finding Alice may wind up getting killed or hurt. So when the game is all finished, they have what they call a debrief card, and it basically, it's a similar thing that LARPers do at the end of their gaming days or weekends or however long they're LARPing. But it's basically just to help the players just get out of the headspace and return back to baseline, basically, and remove themselves from the characters that they've been involved and invested in portraying for the past hour and a half to 2 hours. But I think everybody that has played this game has said, I want to play it again. I want to play, come back, play it again, either as with a different group, or come back and play it again as a different character, because there's right now the deck there's enough variation. There's 5 characters, 5 locations, 5 suspects. There's 5 drive cards. There's for most of each of the timestamps, there's 3 cards of each, and then they also have a small deck of, it looks like maybe a half a dozen or so 10 cards of a search deck, and those can be fun too. But you got to be careful with those, and don't want to overdo it because basically this being a silent RPG, you don't have a GM or DM saying, okay, what do you want to do? What do you want to do next? Or are you sure you want to do that? That type of thing. So, if a player goes to a location, they don't have a GM telling them, okay, you find this. So you pretty much got to improv and pull shit out of your ass to do this. So if you run into a brick wall or you can't think of anything, you could draw a card from the search deck. But you got to be careful with these because these things may or may not play into the narrative on what happens to Alice or what happens to one of the characters. For example, one of the cards in the search deck is a creepy mask left behind. Another one is $10,000 in a duffel bag. Okay, now when you play these things, they may or may not be relevant to Alice's disappearance. It may be a red herring. So maybe a conspiracy theory. I talked about one of the characters. Their motive is to make shit up, just come up with all these conspiracy theories and stuff like that. That character could use the search deck fairly easy with something like that. But you don't want to introduce too much of the search deck because it just gets convoluted. But the clue cards really help prompt the players on what to do, where to go, and it prompts them into how to interpret what they find and reveal that to the group. For example, one of the 60-minute cards says reveal a suspect card. Okay, and you reveal a suspect card, and okay, what about this person? It says Alice told you a secret she didn't want shared with anyone, but you now can't keep it to yourself. Okay, so Alice told you a secret about this person, and then the prompt that helps you to introduce this evidence or clue into the narrative of the text messaging is, what is the secret and what involvement did this person have in it? So, yeah, so the clue cards kind of, they don't hold your hand, but they guide you as far as what to do, where to go, what to find, how the story is progressing, and really how you introduce that information into the narrative of the text messaging is really up to you and your creativity and improv. So I really, really, really recommend this game. It's called Alice is Missing. It's by Spenser Starke. You could get the actual physical copy, or you could also play it on Roll20. They also have a Discord template that you could use for a Discord server, and you could do all your texting on that, and you have Roll20 be sort of like your table. And so I am looking forward to playing more games with this, and I'm interested in finding out how this game plays when you got actual people around the table, actual physical presence in the room around the same table. So I'm looking forward to when all this shit blows over, to be able to play this game that way as well. So, but that's my commentary on Alice is Missing. It is a well thought out game, very engaging. And like I said earlier, this is the one game that I have encountered that actually makes you feel things. It's not one of these games that you play, you win or lose, and you walk away. It's like, oh, okay, that was a good game. Yeah, all right. Let's play Cards Against Humanity now. No. This thing is you're gonna be talking about the memories that you create playing these games of Alice is Missing, because each game is going to be different. True, you only have a limited amount of cards, but even if you have different players or the same players playing different characters, the different cards are going to come out, and the improv, the creativity, and how the characters interact with one another is going to be different each time. So I encourage you to play this game. If you're kind of leery on, it's like, well, I don't like, it's a really touchy subject. That's why they have the lines and the veils and the X cards at the beginning. Before you even start playing, you establish everybody's boundaries. And all the players respect people's boundaries. There are some of the topics by default are veiled, but when you go through them and talk about it with the players, if there's just one player that says, no, I want a line, that I don't want it veiled, I want it lined, it's like, okay, that's it. You don't even bother asking anybody else. If there's just one person that wants that particular topic off limits during the game, that topic is off limits. It's what the other players think or is comfortable with is in a sense irrelevant, because the important thing is that all the players are comfortable and feel safe and have fun playing this game. And that's exactly what you're good to do when you play Alice is Missing. So it's put out by Hunters Entertainment, Renegade Games. So that's my spiel about it. I recommend it. 2 thumbs up. So let's move on and talk to the designer and creator of this game, Spenser Starke. Welcome back to the Mega Meeple. As I alluded in the first section of this episode, harking back to my original format of the podcast of the first 3 years. For those of you who listened, I have this past season, since we're under quarantine, I haven't gamed worth shit. So we've just been doing a fireside shoot the shit chat, just talking about anything. But the person I have on this episode has changed all that with his game, Alice is Missing, which is a silent RPG, oddly enough. So for those of you who have people in your gaming group that like to talk a lot, you're going to love this one. But well, anyway, we have with us today the creator of Alice is Missing, along with a few other things, Spenser Starke.
Hello.
Spenser, how are you
here.
doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. I'm so glad to be here. It's so funny you say, like, for people who love to talk at the table. Alice is like a game that that you go, okay, you have to actually like sit with your phone for like 90 minutes and like talk, and it's so funny because those people then become the people that text a bunch, I've found. So like they just become like and it's cool too, because you see a side of people who maybe don't speak as much at the table, and you get like this cool perspective of like, oh wow, they're making some interesting choices. Anyways, there's a lot of cool stuff in the dynamics there that we witnessed. As you sort of noted, it changes the focus at the table a little bit, which is fun.
Yes, because I've back before the COVID stuff, you go to restaurants and stuff, and you see families at these restaurant tables, and everybody's on their phones.
Everybody's on their phone. Everybody's
like,
texting each other, but
yes.
They're all sitting at the same table. Yeah.
So, but now this game, this game was designed and created prior to COVID stuff, right?
It was, yeah.
And here it has been at least for me, it has become just the game that really, like I said earlier, it's like I've been under quarantine for a year, and as a result, I think all the board game stuff, having people over, going over people's house, has just stopped.
Yep, just stopped. Yep, me too.
So gaming, unless it was solo, I haven't done nothing. I mean, we my gaming group has figured out a way to do like BattleTech via FaceTime.
Sure.
And it's okay, but I've told them, it's like, I feel like, I'm participating, but I'm not really actively there. It's still this separation thing it's not, so I feel like I'm not really engaged. And then this game come along. Now
yeah. So it's interesting because, like you noted, it was developed before quarantine happened, and the game actually didn't start as the game developed into becoming a text message game. It wasn't the process wasn't like, I want everybody to sit around and be on their phones around the table, and that's where the inception was. The inception was the very first song in the timer, which is a song by Message to Bears, which is they have a couple of songs in the soundtrack, and they do amazing music. And I was listening to that song because I was like, okay, there's something in here. Like, this makes me feel something. I want to capture what this makes me feel. It's like a sense of nostalgia, but not like for a time that exists. I don't know. There's like, it has this really interesting feeling when you listen to that song. It's sad, but it's also a little bit hopeful. It's got like this yearning feeling. Anyway, I wanted to capture that in a game. And so it's the way that I usually work is I'll work with music and I'll work with images. I'll work with pictures, illustrations, graphics, and those will inspire the kind of game that I want to make. And so, so I pulled up. It's actually the image. It's very close to the image that's on the back of the introduction card. Right now, it looks like it's like a sort of forest with a moon or a sun in the background with like some snow underneath it. It was that kind of image, and I just over the top of that, I was playing with words, and I just wrote "Alice is missing." And I was like, this feels cool. And like, this feels like something with this music playing in the background. And then I wrote a silent role-playing game. And I was like, okay, what if it's a mystery, but what if it's all played silently? Like, what does that mean for role-playing games? How would I play a game in which you don't speak? Especially, so like for me, the white whale of RPGs, is mysteries, because it's like, how do I create a mystery? If I'm GMing, how do I create a mystery that gives players enough clues to be able to like allow them to solve it, but not make it too hard that they like can't adapt on the fly, right? And like I don't know. There's like this whole thing of like, if you're leading players down a thing as a GM, you have to be with mysteries, you have to be really careful about like, if you're pre-planning the whole thing, you have to be flexible. If you're not pre-planning the whole thing, you have to find a way to be able to make everything come together by the end. And I wanted to capture that kind of, I wanted to figure out how to do a mystery in an RPG. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to challenge myself and do a mystery in an RPG, but do it GM-less. And I was like, okay, I can do this. I can take it one step further. I'm going to do it a mystery, GM-less, silently. How do I do a silent? So anyway, those are all the steps. And so from there, it sort of, I sort of looked to the ways in which we would play something silently. And text messages became the natural first response of like, well, what's a way in which I communicate every day, but do it without speaking? And that's by texting people. And so I started, formulating, okay, well, if I'm texting people and there's a person who's missing, what are the, what are the steps of this kind of missing person story? What are the story beats of that, right? If we look at like popular media, and so started building out a framework there of like what a story like this could look like and how those twists and turns can happen. And then, then you start to think about archetypes of characters that are in those kinds of stories, and from there it just starts to blossom out until we were playing the game with five other people at the table, and I had no idea if it was going to go well or if it was going to completely flop the first playtest. And we played through it, and we're like, "This is something. There's something here that is special." And so, obviously, made a lot of tweaks from that first design. But yeah, that was sort of the inception of it.
Wow. Now, one of the things that you mentioned, and one of the things I talked about in my review is like, we play games, and it's like, yeah, we remember like really awesome times. Like, okay, I needed to rule something, and it just, the last turn of the last die, and I needed that. Oh, that was good. Everybody's like, but kind of baseline is like a lot of games I would play, and I don't remember anything about the game. But I remember memories of, a joke somebody told, or it was, something happening, between friends,
Right.
and as we're playing this game. But I've never really played a game that really made you feel something. It was like, oh, okay, well, yeah, that's a good game. Yeah, we had fun. Yeah, let's play it again. Now, when we started playing Alice is Missing. And I played over role play and Discord, but everybody who played it, it was at the beginning where I'm going through the script, and that's the beautiful thing about you have the script in the rule book. That's what I love. I'm from an acting background stuff, so I could do things like of a script.
And it helps too because you go like basically I wanted facilitators to be able to look at the way that I did that I would do the intro for my friends, because I would do it. So basically what I did is just recorded myself doing the facilitating for my friends, and then quite literally transcribed what I said into the facilitator guide.
Wow, okay.
So that's how like that came to be, is like I was literally like, okay, how do I as the designer, like how do I normally get people into this, and how can I give the facilitator, if they want it, right? Like some facilitators aren't going to use that guide. That's totally fine. They're good on their own. They do their thing. But like for me, I want a thing that like at least gives me an example of how the designer intended for this to sort of be, approached. And so it's like literally just taking what I normally do and just plopping it into the book in some ways in hopes that would help people. So I'm glad that it did.
Okay. Wow, that's cool because and that must be like a theater thing, because I remember back in theaters, like the first meeting is like, once you get the cast together, you do like a cast reading. Everybody sit around a table, and I would bring my little recorder, and it was like, so that's how I memorized my lines and my cues and stuff. It's like, okay.
It's totally a theater thing. And I think, the whole game is very much a theater thing, right? Like that's kind of the fun of it, is that you're basically taking on the role. It's a little bit improv. It's a little bit like, it's acting. It's a lot of acting, but it's through writing as opposed to through, acting with your face and with your mouth. So it feels a little more approachable to people that maybe are interested in storytelling, but don't feel comfortable being theatrical in that way.
Right.
But yeah, it definitely comes from a theatrical like place for sure. That's my background. I went to school for film and TV at the Dodge College of Film at Chapman University, and like I was a directing emphasis there, and like I still write scripts and do things, and like that's kind of where my love is in theater and film and TV and these kinds of things. So I always try and make games that capture that sort of cinematic theatrical experience.
Wow. Well, that definitely comes through. That definitely shows with this game here, And yeah, because during setup, I'd be going through with my players as like, and usually with the group that I play with, like it's almost like the MST3K of game groups. We'll be playing something, and people will like be ripping jokes and
Jokes
throughout
and
the
stuff.
whole
Yep.
time.
Uh-huh.
But this game here is like, okay, we're setting it up. We're cracking jokes about the characters and stuff like that. It was the bully and the secret girlfriend or whatever. And that's at the beginning. So and then we'll start the actual 90-minute
Game.
game proper. And then at the end when I turn my microphone back on, it's like, okay, how's everybody doing? And there's silence.
It's the best.
And there's nothing but silence. There's a good, 10, it seems to me like 10 seconds before someone actually says something. So it's like one of the first of, well, I knew it wasn't going to be unicorns and rainbows.
Rainbows, yeah.
But god damn. So, and already I've played it remotely numerous times. And I already have one person that came back twice. One guy that, I think went to Hunter's Entertainment and ordered a copy.
Oh, good.
One lady who works a lot remotely, and she loves the game, and she's been wanting to play it again. It's like, so I told her like all right, well, we have one scheduled for such and such. Oh, god damn it, I got to work that night. Let me know when you can play it again. So there's people that even going through this emotional roller coaster of the game still wants to play it again, and come back, maybe play a different character or wants to do something. And again, it's just that thing of a game that actually makes you feel something.
Yeah. There's a catharsis in it, I think. It's it's definitely type 2 fun. It's definitely like a type of fun that isn't it isn't the same as like playing something like Paranoia, right? Or playing something like I don't know, something fun and light. It's a game that asks us to look at ourselves and to look at to invest ourselves in a situation that is hard, that's difficult. It's a difficult situation to be in, and I think that for me, what I wanted to capture was like, well, and I'll lay it all on the table because I think what you're saying lends itself to this. But like, I wrote this game after my mom passed away. My mom passed away a couple of years ago, and there was this moment where I was. When I found out, where I was in Southern California and my family was up in Northern California, and I got the call, and I couldn't. They called me before I even got in the car. Like, they called me, something was wrong. She was in the hospital, and then I was like, okay, I'm packing, like I'm grabbing my stuff and I'm leaving. And before I could get in the car, they called me and said that she had passed. And no matter how fast I drove, no matter what I did, no matter how hard I tried, I wasn't going to make it there in time. It's just not possible. And there's this pain that that comes from that. This like this sense of helplessness. This like I don't know. There's a thing there. And so that was years ago. But this sense of like agency over heartbreak, and this feeling of helplessness, and this like the biggest thing that stood out to me in that moment, and the thing I think this game came from the most in regards to that situation, is that the only thing I could do after that, after I got in the car and started driving, after I arrived and was trying to deal with it, the only thing I could do was talk to other people. That's it. I could just have conversations with friends and people that I cared about, family, people that were there for me. And this game is essentially like talking with your friends the game, right? Talking with your friends against a backdrop of something that is scary and difficult, the game. And so, so out of that came this like, the game is, you are in some ways helpless in the game, right? Like no matter what you do isn't going to change what happens to Alice, because that is out of our control.
Mm-hmm.
We are not going to we're not going to be the ones to like necessarily make the difference. But what we can do is be there for each other. And I think when I set out to figure out how to craft this experience, I was like, okay, I want the pillar of this game to be the emotional connection between the players, and the emotional connection with Alice to reflect the emotional connection between the players, right? The connection between the players is what the priority here in this game is. That's where relationships come from. That's where motives come from. And it determines how you interact with the other people. And that's the core of the game. So yeah, I think that was, when you're talking about like the emotions, where the emotions in the game come from, it was from the onset that was that once I started like diving into this kind of serious quote unquote serious game, finding the thing that mattered to me during tragedy and letting that reflect in the game was one of the key design goals.
Wow. Yeah, and one of the things that I really like about the game is one of the aspects of setup is setting boundaries.
Yep. Lines and veils.
So
yeah, and I think that's so key. I mean, safety tools are something that I implement in all the games that I run and all the games that I make, because my goal at the table is to make everybody feel like they can have a good time, and that they know that they're safe, right, in doing that. And especially with a game like this,
yeah,
we get
to
some
be
wild
safe,
shit.
even in just like you were saying, this scenario that's out of our control,
Right.
that in just in the aspect of that condition alone, you don't feel very safe when you're in that kind of situation. So,
Especially as a character, right? But the player needs to feel safe.
Right.
It's okay if the character doesn't, but the player has to always feel safe.
Right.
And so, bleed happens. Bleed is okay, but there should never be a time where the player feels like they are actually in danger of hurting themselves or hurting other people. And so, by by putting some like content warnings up front of like, hey, this game inherently deals with like tense family dynamics and like helplessness and with violence. Those are things that are probably unavoidable in some respects in the game. But then to go, let's turn this over. I mean, there's, there are many a game where I'm playing with people, and I will, to go back to the previous thing, like I will line off or veil off death of a parent, right? One of the parents being dead. Just because that's something that, like, depending on how I'm feeling that day, and I'm sure you and anybody else who's listening to this, like, we've all lost people that are important to us, and we all know there are days we're okay to confront that. There are days where I might put that in the game for me because I feel like confronting that through catharsis through the game. But there's sometimes where I don't, and it just depends on how I'm feeling,
where you're at that
where
time.
I'm at that day. And so having a lines and veil system where I can go, hey, let's not engage with that today. If we could just avoid that, and everybody goes, great, perfect, no problem, off the table, and we move on. That's like it's a thing that allows me to explore catharsis, explore situations that mean something to me on my terms.
Right. Yeah, I remember 1 week we played it, and one of the ladies that was playing it, I used to live with her and her husband. They helped take care of me after my medical emergency, and they have at the time I think they had 6 cats. Now they have 5.
Wow.
But anyway, it was the week leading up to our game. One of their cats ran off. I mean, they're all outside cats, but they all
right. But one disappeared.
But one went AWOL for like almost a week.
Wow.
And so I messaged her. I said, "Well, this game deals with a missing person, so if you want to reschedule, I understand." She said, "No, No, she said, "Oh, I'm good. I'm looking forward to it." And so I think one of the things that we lined that day is okay. And she didn't even bring it up. I brought it up because I like I like animals too. I love
Yeah.
those little cats. I mean, the cat did ultimately come back like
Oh,
a
good.
week
I'm so
later.
glad.
So he's. But anyway, the night we were playing, he was still missing. So I said, "Yeah, I'm gonna line, any harm to animals."
Animals. Yep.
So it's like, yeah, because yeah.
Yeah. Well, we do that. I mean, we do that with like Mr. Halvert can bring up a lot of difficult topics,
Oh yeah,
especially if he's the culprit. And so we will most. I mean, it comes built into the game, but like sexual assault and like violence, like sexual violence, like these kinds of things are things that happen in real life and that happen in these kinds of stories. And like depending on the group that you're with, that might not be something that might be something like with my groups, we just line it. We just go, okay, that's not what happened here in the story, and we get to decide that. And like that's a thing that's important to us because we don't want to engage with that kind of theme. And so, but we can still play the game and still enjoy the game. So yeah, I'm so glad that you were able to use it to sort of craft it to be what you want. But and that's the purpose. And so that was the intention going into it, right? Is like, okay, if we're going to have this game, if I'm going to release this game to people that are people other than me and my group, how do I make sure that I keep everybody safe? And on that note, I also do want to say that there was a time I was running a game at Big Bad Con, and we had a game that we ran until like I don't know, like midnight or so. And then we debriefed from like midnight to like 6 a.m. to talk
wow.
through everybody's. We had a really hard game and it really hit some shit for some people, including me. And so we had this massive debrief afterwards. And the debrief card didn't exist at that time. I had a debrief like that I would do with my players, but there wasn't anything that was structured. And so working with some of the people there, we developed the like debrief card of like the main thing is checking in on everybody when the game is done. How are we feeling? Is everybody okay? Then let's tie up the narrative, and then let's separate ourselves from the character a little bit. So you'll notice that the questions in the debrief are like, what do you want to take away from your character and what do you want to leave behind? And that's designed to go like, I am no longer this person. I can learn from this person and I can reject things I don't like about this person, but they do not exist as me anymore. And so that's sort of a safety tool in some ways as well, right? To like limit the
Right.
amount of bleed that you walk away from the game with. So that was something that they taught me that I learned from that we utilized in that group and that I carried with me through the rest of the
Okay.
design
Because
process.
I understand that's also a technique that a lot of theater people go
Yep.
through. Is like, okay, especially when they're portraying something really really intense, or
Absolutely.
the concept or the theme of the play or whatever is very
You're doing
heavy.
the Crucible, or you're doing like,
Yeah.
Death of a Salesman or something, and you're just
Totally.
like, yeah, and get in that headspace, and you have to remove yourself. And I think, the parallel there for me is that the people we were playing with that helped me to craft that were people that did a lot of LARP. And LARP is like
Mm,
theater but games, right? Like that's kind of the like whole premise. At least some of it is, depending on what kind of LARP you're doing. But like it's very theatrical in a lot of ways. And so yeah, I mean those tools. I think the space between RPG, LARP, theater sort of blend in this game in a way that I'm really excited about, and in a way that I hope helps people to feel like they can explore something that is dark in the way that you might explore the Crucible and enjoy doing the Crucible, but then walk away from it and go, yeah, okay, I'm going to separate myself from being, from being those characters anymore. Give me my name, so like, or leave me my name, or whatever it is. Like that moment, right? You don't want to live with that anymore.
right.
So in a similar way, like I wanted to put in stopgaps for people to be able to feel comfortable walking away.
Now was there much or any feedback or input from people like therapists or psychologists and stuff like that, as far as what kind of things or modes they help their clients go through when dealing with
with like trauma.
a trauma or
Yeah,
PTSD.
so I didn't consult any therapists only because I didn't want to. I mean, they very well could have here. I didn't go the route of like thinking about the game as therapy because I'm not licensed as a therapist, and I didn't
Right.
want to like I don't want to like advocate this as something to like deal with therapy because it's from if it works for you, that's great. I'm so glad, but like I also don't have I don't have enough knowledge to be able to make a game like that. What I will say though is that our editor, who is also our sensitivity reader, Lauren is brilliant, and she has a degree in dealing with like violence against women and dealing with issues around women studies and gender studies and those kinds of things. And so she was invaluable to going like, how do we make a game? How do we make sure the rules do what the games I've played with you do, which is like capture that this is a person that means so much to us and that we want to take care of, that we want to protect, and that we're all doing our best to be able to bring back home safely, and not make her an object, right? Of like the game just revolves around this object of a person who's gone missing, but make it an actual person that means something to us as players, and that way whatever happens, like it isn't just a tool, right? It is an experience, and it's something that treats that subject with sorry, my dog's barking at me.
That's all right.
That treats that subject with respect. So in that way, there was a lot of due diligence done to make sure that like we are approaching the subject in a way that is not harmful and sort of turns the genre, the missing girl genre, on its head. So that was the goal, and that's the work that we did on a professional side to ensure that we were not doing harm.
Okay, great. Yeah, said that song at the beginning of the soundtrack. So in a sense, in that respect, that song came first, and that came of, and the idea of Alice is Missing came from that song. So how do you go about, I guess, creating the music? Because it seems like, and I tell my players is this, like, okay, because I can't hear or see what my players are listening to. So I tell them, is like, all right, I understand that some people don't like to have a soundtrack or something like that when they're playing because they get distracted. But it's like, set it at a good level that you could, because I encourage you to keep the audio up.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it's almost, I compared that to like a movie. You see some kind of action movie or something like that with no music.
It isn't the same experience at all.
It's not the same thing. You add the music, and it just brings more of that emotional feel, and just the timing of it too. Because when shit starts to hit the fan, the music starts to swell and get and so
it was this like Herculean task of like finding music we could license, and then me like just painstakingly playing. I played the game probably 150 times through to make sure, to test everything, but like the soundtrack was one of the biggest things that I tested, which was like, how do I make sure I'm using music that captures the moment that we're in? Do you know what I mean? Like,
right.
How do I, like when that 30-minute card drops, that music swells and you feel it, especially if you have the 30-minute card, you turn it and the music swells on you, even if it's not what's happening like in the group chat, it's what's happening in your mind as it's like happening. And that was just as important as like, I can't control when people say stuff in the group chat, but what I can control is when people turn the cards. So I know when that thing hits 30 minutes or when I know when it hits 29 minutes, I should start ramping up that music. And so one of the things that I did was like, in structuring in structuring that music that that we were so lucky to be able to license from all these amazing artists, positioning all that, fitting it together like Tetris, so that all the music hit at the right spots, but also making sure that like there were swells when I know it takes people about a minute or two usually to actually address the things on their cards and get it on the table for the players. So it's like, how do I create that right moment when you turn the card, and how do I also create the right moment when you tell the players? And those are two different moments that you have to plan for. And so if we were making custom music, it would be a little bit easier because I could sort of control that ebb and flow on my own.
Okay,
but having licensed
so you didn't commission this music to be made.
No.
You were drawing from music that was already created.
I was licensing music from other artists,
Oh,
from artists
wow.
that already existed, taking music that they had written and piecing it together to make the soundtrack. So I mean, it was very much a balancing act of like, how do I get all of this to fit together the right way? And like, also it's interesting because you nailed it when you said it's a movie, right? I think of it like a 90-minute movie, how we would score a 90-minute movie, and how like the music in the beginning, like the opening part has to set the tone. Then we have to go into something that's a little more like, it's not fun and light, but Dead Man Walking is definitely more like, it's a little mysterious, but it's also like kind of upbeat, and it has like a dark undertone, but it feels very much like breaking into Act 1 music, right? Like like it's so, and then we have lighter music that sort of plays all through that first 30 minutes, and then as you start to hit the second 30 minutes, things start to get a little darker, and then things start to anyway, you can see how like there is a meta curve, like a 3-act curve that I'm trying to hit with the music, and then there's like tentpole pieces, like 30 minutes, 45 minutes is huge. Have to have a big thing at 45 minutes, have to have a thing at 30, have to have a thing at 20, have to have a thing at 10, and then obviously the final countdown, the last 30 seconds is so important too, and having that kind of hollow, ethereal, like it's not. I didn't want the end to feel like it had driving music. I wanted the end to feel like almost like an out-of-body experience, almost like we can't believe what has happened. Very like, I said it already, but like very ethereal in some respects, because we are stepping away from the game in those final moments. We're watching the last moments of this story sort of fade away, and that's why
it's almost like a release.
Exactly. It's this release at the end, at the last, 5 minutes of the game that's like, I'm scared, or I'm happy, or I'm, or I'm confused about what is happening and I'm trying to figure it out, or like whatever the emotion is, like the music is telling you, let go. It's okay. Let go. Let go. And then the timer goes off, and then the first song plays again, and the voicemails come over that first song, and that brings us full circle from the beginning of the game to the end of the game. Those voicemails are from the beginning as well, so we get this kind of like returning to the surface hero's journey moment there.
Oh yeah, and that's those voicemails too, because at the beginning, unless they played the game before, they don't know.
Nope.
Okay, you're gonna record something before you knew that she was missing. Okay, so especially when you get these jokers and stuff, they'll do like a wise ass
something fun,
voicemail, stuff like that. Like, okay, and then when they finally realize at the end of the story why and the place of those voicemails, and it comes back up, and it just, and again, it's just. Not to be morbid, but it's like the last nail in the coffin.
Yep.
Just and so you have that release, and you have the voicemails coming in, and then I just envision somebody that lost somebody, and they don't want to delete the last voicemail that they got from that person.
Yep. Well, and that's a mechanic that came mechanically from 10 Candles. I don't know if you've ever played 10 Candles, but there is you record a voicemail at the beginning of the game. 10 Candles is a game about like it's a horror game. It's a game about where basically at the end, everybody is not going to make it. The game ends when everybody passes away, or everybody it is a game that ends in death. And so at the end of the game, you play those voicemails that are like, if I don't make it out of here, X, Y, and Z. Right?
Okay.
Like that's what everybody does. So that was from Stephen Dewey and his brilliant game, and he might have gotten it from somebody else. I don't know, but that was sort of the inspiration mechanically, but emotionally, that came from me. Every time I've lost somebody that's important to me, I save their voicemail. Like the last voicemail they send me, there's no way I'm going to get rid of that. And I've listened to that voicemail over and over again. And sometimes, like my mom's last voicemail, she cracked a joke in the middle of it, right? She was like joking and happy. And it's like, that is an encapsulation of where this person was in that moment of time.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's okay that those, like, I love when we have these, Jax is usually pretty sad. And Julia's is usually a little bit kind of paranoid. Dakota and Evans and, those can sort of vary, like and Charlie's can sort of vary. Like, so you have this mix, and that was the goal, was to like have this mix of like emotional states that people are in about the situation, so that you capture the realness of that moment. Because the last voicemail somebody leaves, they don't know that that's the last voicemail.
Right.
And there's a beauty in that, I think.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Well, that's we talked a lot about Alice, and one of the things that the initial game has is like, all right, you got 5 characters, 5 locations, and you got 5 players, stuff like that, and then you got I believe 3 cards of each time. Time track or timestamp. So I know a lot of people, myself and people on the Discord server that we talk about. Alice is missing a bunch, along with all other kind of hunter entertainment games.
Yeah.
I'm still learning. I haven't played it yet, but I'm still going through and trying to learn Altered Carbon and the Outbreak Survivor 2nd edition.
Yeah, those are like opposite end of the spectrum mechanically from this game. Yeah. I came into Hunters and they were making pretty crunchy games, and I was like, how about you buy this weird game that has very little rules but has a lot of like, anyway, it's a very different subset of games that I'm working with them on, and I'm just glad to like be able to give some variety to the catalog and like show people that games can be made in lots of different ways.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you that you're able to be involved with that. But
of course, we're talking about like adding. So I can speak a little bit to. I've teased that there's an expansion coming.
Right.
I can speak a little bit about it. I can't talk only because it's not like publicly out there yet what exactly we're doing. I can speak a little bit about the mindset that I have going into it and how I'm like what I'm looking to bring to the set. So it's going to be, exactly kind of what you would imagine expansion to Alice would be, hopefully, which is, more locations, more suspects, more clue cards, more endings, more characters. The thing that I'm exploring with this is that the first game was very much like, I mean, honestly, the base game was so much an experiment. It was like, is this something that will resonate with people? Because it resonated with me, and I it's my favorite game to play only because it makes me feel connected to the people I'm playing with more than a lot of games that I've played. I feel like I know them better after I get done in some respects, which is a nice thing to have. And so I really enjoy it, but I didn't know how other people would react to it. It's such a weird experiment. And so I basically pared down the game to what you need to play, and that's it, right? And set it at the price of a movie ticket, essentially. To go like, here's a thing that you can play once with your friends, and that's like $5 a ticket, less than that, right? And if you enjoyed it and you want to play it again, then great, you get to play it. You can find a new group, or you can switch characters, or whatever you want to do, and experience this kind of story again. But it's slimmed down enough. The box is small. The cards are nice and tarot, but like everything is pretty efficient, so that we're able to keep the cost down, so that people could try the thing and see how they feel about it, without having to invest a ton of money into it. But if you enjoy it and this expansion, comes through, if and when the expansion hits, the idea is that if you've played Alice before, this will give you new stuff to do, but also it will make the mechanics just slightly more crunchy. They're not crunchy, but like there are more intricate cards. So you'll notice there are coin flips on some of the cards that exist here. More of the cards will include that kind of mechanic in diverting the story off in different ways. There will be, we're messing with it, and it's still in playtest right now. So there's that all could go away if it doesn't work. But what I'm trying to do is say, like, if you played it before and you understand how the game works, here's some stuff that augments that experience, that allows that experience to like breathe a little more, or have a little more breadth, I guess I should say, and ask a little more of you, both mechanically. Like I was saying, there's going to be some more coin flips and things that like allow for diverging paths, but also narratively challenging. Some of the clue cards are ask you to do some, ask you to make up some stuff, ask you to like some of the locations and suspects like have are a little bit more. Well, we saw one of them. We saw one of the new characters I used in one of the actual plays that we did, which was the ex-boyfriend. And so that brings a little more baggage to it. It's a little bit harder to play. It's a little bit more like, there's a little more nuance to that, because you are away you've broken up with her, but you still have like an emotional connection. So you can see how like I'm hoping that as these things start to develop out, that like it just gives people a little more to grab onto, something that challenges them a little bit more than the base game did. So I mean that's kind of I think all I can talk about in specifics, but like we're in playtest now. We're trying a lot of different stuff, and I'm excited. It seems we've had really good reception so far. So I'm excited about it. But it's definitely Alice is Missing, slightly more advanced.
Okay, all right. We're looking forward to that if and when that comes to fruition. Now, this is probably too early to even know, but do you think would you be putting that through Kickstarter or just releasing it through the website?
I'm not sure yet. I'm gonna assume it's probably just straight to distribution, because it's gonna be small. It'll probably be like half the cards of the base set, because we already have those to work with. But yeah, that'll ultimately be a Hunters and Renegade decision, I think, and I think it's probably either a late this year or early next year jam, depending on when they want to do it. It comes down to their timing as well. But yeah, I mean that's I would say it's probably not something that'll hit Kickstarter, though I could be terribly wrong with that. We'll see how it goes.
All right, now tell me, going away from Alice for a bit. Tell me how you got connected with Hunters, and is it a Critical Role? Are you doing?
Critical Role is where I'm producing now. Yeah, I just started that job a couple 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, something like that. It's fairly new.
Right. So how did you guys connect with?
Yeah, so with Hunters, I used to work at a place called SourceFed, which was a like YouTube channel that did comedy news kind of stuff, and so we had a lot of people there that cross-pollinated all over, like Geek and Sundry, and that whole division of like digital media. And so through that, I sort of was in and around circles of the Geek and Sundry people.
Okay.
And so
say hello to Ivan for me when you see him.
Oh, I will.
he was one of my guests. I interviewed him about the Outbreak Survivor game.
Oh yeah. So Ivan's actually the way that Hunters, that I got involved with Hunters, because I was at Gen Con, And I went to Gen Con to sell a game. It was a game that isn't released now. Was just okay. And went there with the like, okay, I'm gonna like try and get a deal with a publisher. I'm gonna get like meetings with publishers, as you do, and set some stuff and had some meetings and walked away feeling like I failed completely. I was a complete failure. I spent all this money to come here and I didn't do what I set out to do, and that whole imposter syndrome thing, and was feeling really downtrodden. Was sitting in the airport, and Ivan sits across from me in the airport, and he was at one of the games that I went, and he was playing some game that I went and watched, and I knew him from the Geek and Sundry circle, but we had never really like spoke. We just knew of each other. So I went over and started talking to him. We were talking about games, and I pitched him some stuff, and he was like, "This feels okay, but like, what really like, what makes you excited about games?" And I was like, "Well, I like games that make me feel something. I like games that give me an experience that like are visceral in some way." And he was like, "Go make a visceral game. Don't make this, make a visceral game." And so on the plane ride home, I started stacking dice, because that felt really like interesting and visceral to me. Of like, I thought, when the turbulence would happen, the dice tower would sway, and it sort of felt a little bit Jenga, a little bit dread. And I walked away from that plane having written basically the entire first draft of Icarus, which is the game that Hunters ended up publishing before Alice. One of the games that they published before Alice, and it is a game about how great civilizations fall. It's sort of a storytelling game about this civilization, that is at its peak, and you're exploring via like main. Sort of via like characters that embody the pillars of that civilization. You're exploring how this place goes from being a utopia to a dystopia, and the main mechanic is that when you fail a dice roll, you stack it in the center of the table, and those dice stack higher and higher until you put the final die on top. Until you put a die on top of the tower, and the tower falls, and the civilization falls, and the game comes to an end. And so that has this like very, when you play it, has a very visceral, like everybody at some point backs away from the table and stops writing on the table, and like is very careful on their rolls, and feels things when they fail, not just because the narrative takes a turn that they didn't expect or want, but that like they have to now add a die to a tower, so they feel that like tension of that. Anyways, there's a lot of cool stuff with that, and from there I sort of figured out like this is the kind of game that I enjoy making the most. And I've made, I did Kids on Brooms. I'm doing other games now that are less, quote unquote, experience games or visceral games, that I'm collaborating with other people on. But the stuff that I make myself, I tend to stick to stuff that is, I don't know, breaking that mold in some way, doing something new with like a visceral kind of experience. So okay. Hopefully that's the goal.
Now, we've talked throughout this interview about just like you said, visceral games that make you feel. I talked about it at the beginning was like, okay, well, I don't remember many board games. So, have you come across any board games that made you feel something? Or it seems like I get a lot of that stuff through RPGs.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to think of an actual like board game or video game, something like that really makes me feel something as much as an RPG.
So one of the big inspirations on for Alice was sort of threefold, and they're video games that I think capture this really well. Life is Strange, Oxenfree, and Firewatch. Those three video games were huge inspirations. In fact, Life is Strange, the artist that we got for that first song, he is Message to Bears. He has a song on Life is Strange, on the Life is Strange album, like the video game, like the album that they released for that. So and that was where I heard that song and was like, this game sort of has that same emotional core to it as Life is Strange. Very different story in some ways, in other ways it has similarities, but like it's a totally different experience than doing that. But it has that same like yearning, nostalgia, like warm, emotional, but also, you know, dark. Like there's like a dark undertone. So those were things that I definitely leaned on. As far as like actual board games are concerned, I think that there's games that make me feel excited. Like I get moments of like surges of excitement in playing them. I think the closest I've probably had to like straddling that line between board game and RPG, and I think it falls pretty squarely in the RPG court, but it definitely straddles the line, is Fog of Love. Fog of Love is something that has definitely made me feel stuff. Also, For the Queen is an RPG, but it just uses cards, kind of like Alice, and you draw them and answer the prompts. And that feels kind of like people who play board games, you could probably play that game with them and they wouldn't feel so out of their depth because there's no character sheets, there's no like, you know, modifiers, it's sort of like Alice, like there's no nothing, there's no math to do. You're just creating characters through the prompts that you read. So but For the Queen is absolutely incredible and is probably my go-to for people that are used to playing board games but are interested in playing RPGs that resonate emotionally.
Okay. Yeah, I think the only, I can't think of any board game. I'm sure I could think of one later on, but it will come to me in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think just talking about mentioning video games is like I think the one video game that I really played that had some like feelings playing is an old one on my old PlayStation 1. It must have been, or 2, is Legend of Dragoon.
Oh yeah,
I always like just the relationship between, you know, the different characters and stuff. I thought was like
actually like touches you. I played that, I think the PlayStation 1 version growing up. I remember like bits and pieces of it, and it was definitely like, you know, there's a lot of games where you fight and all you care about is fighting, and
right.
And you don't feel anything because of it. But like, you know, we're seeing good examples too, I think, of that in something like Hades, which is which is a video game. It's a roguelike, which tends to not be very emotional at all because you have to separate yourself from the fact that you die all the time. But they added a really cool, almost like it's not dating simulator, but it kind of feels like a dating simulator where like you're interacting with the different gods that are down there, and they're, you know, you sort of get an emotional attachment to these people in a way that I think most roguelikes don't tend to touch. And I think that's what's given it so much success in that regard. It feels different in that way. So that's cool. And then the other piece to note, as we're on like the subject of video games, is that we're in the process of developing an app for Alice that will.
I was
not
wondering
require
about
you,
that because it was that was part of the Kickstarter.
Yeah. So we're in development on that now. I just saw the first like full run through of it. It looks really, really cool. And that will allow you to play the game without needing the cards at all. Like you can buy the app for like a couple bucks, and then you can literally just play the whole thing via your phone. So that will be basically a video game in a weird way. Mm-hmm. It's like a multiplayer video game, but it's a RPG, but it's done. Anyways, there's like there's a weird line there of like, at what point does it become not a tabletop game anymore? It becomes a video game that is heavily inspired by or is based on a tabletop game. I don't know. There's a lot of lines there. I'm not sure, and we're crossing them without knowing. But I'm excited about it, and I'm definitely interested in like thinking about how to create video, what would traditionally be like a tabletop experience but in a way that is, you know, done that is introduced to people in a format they know, like a video game, because I think that, you know, video games make billions of dollars and tabletop role-playing games don't generally. D&D is like the only the only exception to this rule, I think.
Yeah.
But anyways, like having being able to cross that line a little bit, being able to, you know, go, hey, if you like video games, you might like this thing that is also a video game but asks for your input a little bit more than a normal video game might, like, has the potential, I think, to breach that like ceiling that's been put on tabletop role playing games into the video game community, where like there are a lot more players. So,
well, yeah, definitely looking forward to that. Well, thank you so much, Spencer, for taking some time out on your recording this on Friday afternoon. But I since I have you face to face, I just want to tell you, I mean, and this is going to sound like I'm kissing your ass or fanboying you and stuff like that, but you know, people listened to my review of the game in the first half of this episode, so this is a good way, like you said, to bring the whole bring the whole episode around. So, but I just want to tell you, you know, I've been in quarantine isolation. I'm considered by my doctor to be high risk for COVID. Yeah. So, this month or this week or so marks the 1 year that I've been shut up in my room and only leaving for doctor's visits or hospital things and stuff like that. And I mean, I have, and that's one of the reasons why I'm putting this episode will be one of the last episodes that I put out for the Mega Meeple, and then I'm just gonna step away. I'm gonna, of all things, I'm gonna be doing some a channel about horror movies, and because that's another thing that I love. I'll just do like a commentary on horror movies, but I for a time there, I was either doing solo games or, like I said earlier, is like, playing BattleTech with my friends, but they're over in another house, or even when we were meeting in the same house, they'd be all in a dining room, and I'd have to be in, another room separately. Yeah. And it's like, so there's one thing is like being isolated, being alone is one thing, but being around other people and feeling alone is even worse. Yeah. Oh yeah. So, I was ready to like sell all my games. I have a gaming table and everything back there. I was like, fuck it. You know, I'm never gonna, you feel like it's like, okay, I'm never gonna be out of this. This is never gonna end. Blah blah blah. Yeah. Oh yeah. So, but a game like Alice is Missing, and you may have designed it prior to COVID, but it was for somebody like me and people like me that have to be shut in for the past year. This game really saved my interest in gaming. So.
Well, thank you. That means so much to me. And it's one of those things where like I couldn't have foreseen what the world would be 6 months after, 6 months into playtesting is when we went, half of my playtesting was all in person. And then the other half went into being in quarantine. And I never could have predicted the year before making, the year of making the game. Like I never could have predicted where we'd be. So it was for all of the sad circumstances around which we have, as a world, have had to endure, to be able to have something that in that darkness just brings a little bit of like light to playing with your friends, and allows you to feel that same kind of like collaborative storytelling excitement, without having to be in the same room together. in a way that feels native to the game, right? It isn't like being on Roll20 and moving your minis and all talking via voice chat. It's like, no, it's designed like the game does. I think the best version of the game is sitting alone in your room. And so for that to kind of happen, I just feel I'm just so thankful to be able to have brought it, for everything to have lined up, as awful as COVID is and awful this last year has been for all of us. To have that line up in that way is I'm just thankful for. So, and I'm so glad that it was something that, that has resonated with you and resonated with the people that you've played with, because truthfully, this was something that I made. This was the game that I made that I thought was going to break my heart. This is the game that I made where I was like, I don't know if anybody else is going to want to play this thing. It is so weird and different from anything else that's like that I've ever played. And is it a game? I don't know. Like, what is it? And I didn't think it was going to get a publisher. I just didn't know but it was the game that meant the most to me of any. It's the thing I've made that's meant the most to me out of anything I've ever made. And that's all I knew, right? I just felt that in me, that like this is what matters. This is the thing that I care about, as far as creative projects are concerned. And so to be able to release it and then to be able to have, somebody say like, this is what saved the year of gaming for me, truly means the world. So thank you. And thank you for having me on. I'm so thankful to be able to also come here and talk about the thing I love so much.
Great. Thank you. So if people want to find out more about Alice is Missing, or Icarus, or
so
your YouTube channel, where could they go?
Yeah, so you can go to alicesmissing.com to find more about Alice. If you want to find more about the games that I've made through Hunters and Renegade, you can go to Renegade Game Studios, and they have Icarus, Kids on Brooms, Alice is Missing there. I'm in development with a good friend of mine on a game called Young Blades. It's a little more traditional of a game than Alice, but it's about young adventurers trying to discover the heroes they'll one day become, sort of YA coming of age fantasy with feels game. I've always wanted to play, I've always loved playing in fantasy settings, but I've never felt like they do what I want as far as engaging emotionally with the players. And so I'm trying to, so we're in playtesting for that, like exploring how we can make fantasy games feel emotional through mechanics rather than just relying on the players to do it themselves. I just started doing work for Critical Role, so I'm a producer over there, and that's a wonderful tabletop role playing community as well. So really, really excited about stuff coming up, and keep an eye out. If you want to follow me specifically, you can follow me at Spenser Starke on Twitter or Instagram. That's SpenserStarke.
Thank you, and of course we'll have links to those in the show notes of this episode. Spenser, thank you again so much. Thanks for everything you do. Thanks for reigniting my love and interest in the board gaming community and hobby. Because I was seriously, I was ready to sell everything and say just all right. I'm glad season is over for me.
Stadia.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Spenser. You have a good weekend.